Hi, comrades. First thing I do want to welcome everybody to the meeting here today. I will be appealing for some assistance. I'm going to chance calling people by the names as I read them. I won't guarantee I'll have correct pronunciations, and I won't be embarrassed if anybody corrects me, so that we genuinely pay the respect to the individual and the parents who named them. The meeting itself, the subject is the development and of educational facilities within South Africa, but not the standard reading and writing and arithmetic education, the education of socialist activists with a Marxist understanding and a Marxist agenda. Just 1 second, comrade. So, yeah, the recorder was putting across me there. The idea of workers' education is important because education itself is understood by the ruling class, no matter who the class is. The examples that I'm going to start with are the examples in Ireland that in the period around 1829, there was a struggle for religious freedom, and Catholics were granted the right to educate their own children, the right to their own schools, the right to build their own churches, etc. Over the next decades, they took control. The church, Catholic Church, took control of children's education. So they set the agenda, they set the theoretical understandings, they set the philosophical understandings of generations of Irish children. They later on, through the Jesuit organization, built, managed to get constructed a national university, a Catholic university. They also had a number of feeder colleges where they took children through second level, brought them through with the intention that these would be the people who would be the leaders, the influencers within the Irish state. After the Civil War and after the War of Independence, the Irish Free State consolidated itself, and many of the people who led the Irish state for the last 100 years came through that structure of the Jesuit colleges. Along the way, they also realized that there was another element in society worth training and influencing, and that was the workers. They established a workers' college, again directly under the Jesuit control and in Jesuit-owned property. The workers' college that they it has more or less faded out, and I'm not really sure when it went. I don't think too many people noticed, but it has been replaced in the Irish situation by two other institutions. One of them run by the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, but sadly it's little more than a recreational institution with the emphasis on post-retirement and social elements. There is one other college established, and that is the SIPU College, which is a training college for shop stewards, for activists. This is owned and controlled by the trade union SIPU and provides facilities for other trade unions. It's unique in that sense that it has its own property and it's based in Dublin, but also feeds out nationally. Now, there's a lot of lessons can be learned out of what has been developed by SIPU, but they're not coming out of isolation. Before the revolution in Ireland, the revolutionary period, James Connolly in the socialist movement attempted within the small structures that they had. This would be the experience that most of the comrades here today. You've got your social and political education in small groups, but there's a limit to what small groups can do and how deep they can go. And from this point of view, it's important that nationally based and nationally structured and international structures for workers are established. The project that David and the other comrades are attempting to establish is extremely important because it's going to be a workers' college with an agenda, the philosophical and theoretical understanding of Marxism. And it's not just limited in influence or potentially limited in influence. The success of this college will have international lessons to be passed on through the movement. And I would ask at this stage if David could come in and take it up from here in the detail that it deserves. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Jimmy. Can everyone see the presentation I'm sharing? I can see it, but I'd like to know if everyone else does.
Yeah, we can see
okay.
it.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Well, look, comrades, I've had the privilege of being with the Workers' College, and which is very much well established from 1991. And we are very privileged to have Jabu Nala, the daughter of June Rose Nala, who was instrumental in getting the Workers' College established, and brought over all the lessons that she gained from Ruskin College, where she studied in Britain, which is a workers' college. And she brought much of the architecture and the ideas and the accreditation over to South Africa. So let's look at the possibilities for workers' education. It is rather focused on Workers' College itself, but of course the issues are international. And as we explained in the introductory blurb, in Germany in the 1920s, there was a huge expansion of Marxist schools in something like 20 cities and so forth. That was of a high level of theoretical development. But of course, what we're seeing today is something which links together the ideas, the practice, and the accreditation, which is now attached to workers' education in South Africa and in many places internationally. And I want to thank so many people like Alex and others who've come in, who have such experience and know the architecture of such colleges and programs in America. So let me go down to the next point, which, South Africa's had in the past a combination of agitational and educational material. I'm showing you a range of Isisebenzi. Those were the workers' publications, workers' papers that were produced in the early 1970s, which did agitational work, but also educational work, explaining the system, the legal system in South Africa, how to oppose that legal system which oppressed African workers and also sidelined workers generally, and led on. If you look at number 5 there, Isisebenzi, that publication led to some 300 stevedoring workers, dock workers, attending an investigation into the harbor, and it displaced entirely the collaborators that they were saying were speaking for the workers. So many of these publications had very important impacts. Then I want to turn to the development of IIE, the Institute for Industrial Education, which I was a secretary of in the past. That was after the mass strikes in South Africa in 1973. And I want to pay tribute to Rick Turner, who had a decisive effect, decisive professional guidance, let's put it that way. Rick was a lecturer par excellence, a really very well-developed mind in South Africa, one of the great minds of South Africa. And he devoted himself, when he was banned, he was declared a communist and then house arrested, and he produced these publications. I'll give you a sample of 3 of them. The really monumental work in terms of writing up the Durban strikes themselves, which he did in secret when he was house arrested and the house was being observed. And then a series of publications, including the history of workers' organizations, the work in the factory, Negotiation Handbook, and The Worker in Society. I've tried to gather them all. Thanks, Alex, and others who've offered to help fill the gaps so that we can eventually have a full selection of the writing that Rick undertook just before he was assassinated in January 1978. And I want to pay tribute to Rick's work. I often disagreed with Rick, but we don't often have the privilege of a developed mind like Rick's applied to workers' education. Now, there were divergent perspectives on IE, and I think they're instrumental in terms of how workers' education is developed in South Africa. First of all, it was a correspondence college. Why a correspondence college? Well, at that time and under apartheid, it was illegal for black and white to get educated together, and they enforced that quite rigorously. So you had police spies attending workers' education or even any form of education. I ran a night school from the Catholic Cathedral in Durban in 1966 and 67, and eventually that was closed down by the police with a writ of warning that we would be prosecuted if we continued as white people in educating black people. I mean, it was that raw, that ugly situation. So the idea that Rick had and others was that we'd have a correspondence college for workers, and you'd have written courses, and that would get around this question of prohibition of integrated education. But this was a difficulty because that meant that most workers, African workers, particularly at that time, had a very low level of education. That's what apartheid did. It didn't allow black workers to get education. And so it meant that workers who were participating really couldn't participate to the full extent without a lot of mentoring and assistance. And meanwhile, the unions needed to be developed. In other words, we had to have branch executive committees, shop stewards who could organize, organizers who could collect funds by hand, and also be able to control the unions. The idea was that these would be worker-controlled unions, not run by professionals. And many of the people, like myself, were white professional. We were graduates from the university and so forth. There was a huge gulf between ourselves and in terms of education with ordinary workers. And the key issue was how to develop a black leadership in the union. And we had the marvelous success with June Rose, who was a monumental worker leader. Many a manager and many a capitalist found themselves on the receiving end of her intellect and her tongue. And she developed, let's say, naturally in the development of a leader. But, the workers felt, and the unions felt, that any education should be union controlled, and it should be oriented towards the specific education needs of actual organization. Remember that in we had mass strikes in 1973, then we had bannings after bannings. I mean, something like 20 trade union and community activists were house arrested and were removed. So it was absolutely imperative we had to develop a black leadership with all due speed. And therefore, we had to, that put enormous stress on Rick, who was working from home. He could manage everything in writing because he was a marvelous academic and a sympathetic academic. On the other hand, we didn't want paper accreditation. What we wanted, rather than formal qualifications, we wanted cadres. Black trade unions could develop and lead the unions. So the formal qualifications, unfortunately, attracted black personnel managers who were using this qualification to get a good job rather than trade unions. And it led to some really bitter controversies, within the unions, which are still somewhat in the air. I just want to pay particular tribute to Bekasisa Harold Nkosana, who was one of the marvelous trade unionists of the time, and a black intellectual who suffered terribly in 1976, was tortured almost to death, and survived out of that, and was really a great mind, a great translator, and someone who worked together with Rick and with the trade unionists in a marvelous way, even though he was never able to take the leadership because the security police said if you take any position of leadership, you will be immediately banned and imprisoned. And I want and people like Harold, are not acknowledged today, and I want to do something about that by mentioning him today. Then, if we look at the situation thereafter in the 19th, so in other words, the IRE went down, unfortunately, but workers' education continued in various initiatives. I'm mentioning one here, Sifuna Konke. That means we want it all. And those were lecture notes at some 60 pages or so of guidance for workers about the developing situation as the mass movement developed in the 1980s. Sifuna Konke came out in 1987, and it was a revolutionary guide, a guide to revolutionary workers about the development in the situation. And it was designed as a footnote in history. We worked together with the president in South Africa, who was then the General Secretary of the Mine Workers Union. We produced this document, which was meant to be used throughout the union, but, and this was a foretaste of what was to come, at the last minute he backed out of it, and so we didn't have the revolutionary education for the Mine Workers Union. But we did see in the 1980s, ILRIG, that's International Labor and Research Group, developed in 83, and there were many other labor initiatives at that time. SALIP was, in a sense, the trade union work that we did in the Marxist Workers' Tendency of the ANC. And as mentioned, and when we returned in 1990, June Rose was a graduate of Ruskin College. She brought over all that experience and that enthusiasm from Ruskin. She was a sociology lecturer in Durban with me for a while in the 1990s. I then went over to UDW, and she helped and she initiated the Workers' College in 1991. I'm working together with Heather Hughes and other people to get all the full documentation of the origins and development of the Workers' College. But of course, there is more than one. I know I'm focusing on the Workers' College for a particular reason, but let's just mention, what's out there. And why I'm mentioning it is that I found, I've just come back from South Africa, and I found that many people don't know of the work of other colleges. So the workers' education in South Africa is very fragmented, although there are many points of excellence, but they're not, those points of excellence are not connected to each other. For instance, I can mention I went to the 40 years of celebration of ILRIG, which was really marvelous, with much really good discussion and enthusiasm for workers' education. We have Ditsela. I didn't make contact with Ditsela, but I know that they are doing accredited work in some way, which I need to learn more about, or we all need to learn about. Then there's Kanya College in Johannesburg. Again, unfortunately, I didn't manage to meet I'm trying to think, Fundriel, I forget her first name, I got this the sister in mind. But anyway, she was quite ill at the time, so I didn't connect. The Casual Workers Advice Office has now registered itself as a union, but it does excellent trade union education for the most marginalized of workers. Then we've got the Neil Agate Labor Studies Unit, NASLU, at Rhodes University. Lucien may connect with us just now. He was extremely friendly, gave me a load of books, which I could hardly carry thereafter. So they're doing some marvelous work in Rhodes University and in the region at the Eastern Cape, which is the most radical center in South Africa at times, although sometimes it falls into a bit of a slump. And then the UWC is the University of Western Cape, is working courses together with the Workers' College of South Africa, and it's got strengths particularly in labor law. I know some of the people involved there. Then we've got Workers' College itself, WCSA, and it appears to be the only workers' institute which is directed by trade unions and provides accredited courses. And I was very pleased indeed to be invited to speak at the graduation of 68 students in just a few weeks ago, and to celebrate with them a marvelous achievement and to pass a broad understanding. The Workers' College of South Africa is now applying for independent accreditation, and I'm particularly interested if we can make the links in Britain, internationally, and the United States to be able to give them more of a base. So it provides Workers' College of South Africa, and I'm so pleased we've got Siyabonga present with us, as well as our academic and other directors like Monitor Otu, and they can give a little more to this. But the full statement of its work gives an understanding, a critique of capitalism. It's not just providing information or knowledge for knowledge's sake. It raises political issues from the perspective of the working class in a non-sectarian manner. For instance, South African workers confront tremendous problems because of both of foreign and local economic circumstances. Our friends are facing layoffs or working in insecure positions as the workplace undergoes transition. The exploitation and oppression of women employees, union members, and members of the community continues to be a problem. In addition to this, the working class continues to see its proportion of national income decline. The poverty and social ills that go hand in hand with the plight of the working class continues to exacerbate, and in confronting these and other difficulties, one of the most important tools we have at our disposal is education. And it's that which I was pleased to celebrate the achievements of. Now, Workers' College has this portfolio, and maybe Siyabonga and Monica, you can come in and add to what's here. This is just very formally the kind of accreditation that's been given to workers who've successfully passed through its halls. If you look at this, we'll see that, first of all, you've got the Industrial Working Life Program. That's a degree, which is the degree is given by the University of KwaZulu-Natal. It has a certificate in Social and Development Studies, a certificate in Labor and Gender Studies, certificate in Participatory Action Research, a diploma in Labor Law, a political and economic orientation to shop stewards, intermediate certificate on the Trade Union History Program, and a basic shop steward certificate. So it gives quite a range of courses, very much oriented to the development of trade unions. And I was pleased to pass on a course which I'd started, quite some time ago, in terms of community practice, in particular to community development around housing, or it could be applied to rural areas and to water services, so that workers themselves could participate and struggle to get the services which they're promised in the South African Constitution. Now, the official evaluation of workers' education generally, it's not specific to the Workers' College, and these are some of the things which we need to work to. Of course, this is an official evaluation, which is from a distance. It's not sympathetic to workers' education, but it does have some points we need to keep in mind. Among graduates, there's generally a high competence in trade union organization and collective bargaining reported, but they argue there's insufficient evidence. There are no surveys. Normally in a scientific situation, you should have a survey, pre-post survey. You should see how things have changed, and you can make deductions from themselves. And these surveys should be of the workers or the students themselves. It's said that there's a high dropout rate of starting. Maybe Siyabonga, you could come in that. Maybe it's not quite true. It's Workers' College. There's a high cost per graduate, and it seems as though the highest cost is that of accommodation. As many of the programs, and it's not the programs of the Workers' College, but other programs, are not accredited, and they're held in hotels with a kind of pep talk on a particular aspect of workers' interest without confirmed impact. Now, the last point I think is important, because I've had discussions with the International Transport Federation, which is one of the few international trade union groupings which has some life to it. And the comrade Brian, somebody I knew only 50 years ago, he tells me that all their training is done in hotels, and it's kind of pep talk, and everyone comes and shakes hands and off they go. And he's wanting to, to break with that tradition, particularly in Asia, but also in Africa, so that we plug in workers to really serious workers' education, which is going to bring results in terms of the revival of the labor movement and a really developed leadership. So let me not go back to that. Some points for discussion. I'm sorry, it's a little long, but let's just see what we've got. What I'd like to see us working on together with Siyabonga and our Dr. Otu is the international links and support to build an international perspective, particularly to Worker College, not denying the other places, which I think are doing good work, but particularly the focus I would like us to think of as Workers College. Interaction between the Workers' College and other colleges internationally to boost the range of courses, the quality of the syllabi and teaching, and maybe to introduce new courses such as global labor movement, the crisis of globalization at an undergraduate level, because this is where people actually have to answer the questions which are posed to us, every day. I've noticed the quality of some of the syllabi, or the organization, the structuring of the syllabi in some of the workers' courses here in the States, and it's really I think would be very useful to to plug in to that level of presentation. Then I'm particularly, and I think we all internationally are keen on participation of workers from the SADC region, that is the Southern African Development Cooperation Agreement. A region, including Namibia. Particularly in Namibia, there's a crying need for workers' education there. In Zimbabwe, where the workers' movement is being hammered by a most reactionary regime, by the BLS countries, I hate to use that term, but it's Botswana, Lesotho, and Eswatini, not Swaziland, and internationally. And then to see if we can eventually arrive at international exchange programs. And then, of course, I think we'd love to see that Workers' College courses and the degrees would get external accreditation, not necessarily exclusive external, but get some acknowledgement, some way in which they could work to get accreditation internationally, so that the workers' education, which is being conducted at a highly professional level, with high levels of impact in the movement, with a high consciousness of what's part or parcel of all the political and the economic drives or the issues that we have to deal with in the labor movement, and to be able to develop a labor movement in Southern Africa and within the region and within Africa and internationally, to take forward the marvelous opportunities we have in terms of developing workers' education. I'll close off there, and Jimmy, let's open up for discussion.
David, could you just stop screen sharing, please, so we can see the speaker?
Yes, I'll do that now. Stop. I'm clicking on it right now.
Thank you.
By the way, let me show that there's Workers' College there. I hope it's visible. But anyway, I was granted this T-shirt and I wear it with pride. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you, David. The first thing I want to do is express an apology. The apology is that I personally knew and know so little of the history that you have brought to us. And I thank you for that, David. And I salute the comrades who have walked before us. I now want to open the meeting up. So if any comrade wishes to address, can you raise your hand either physically or electronically, and we'll just call you in then.
Siyabonga, please come in. We should really have had you as the official speaker. Siyabonga, there we are. Please, look forward to hearing you. Yeah. Jimmy, Siyabonga's raised his hand.
Okay. Siyabonga, please go ahead.
Thank you, comrade. Greetings to all of you. I would like to take this opportunity and thank comrade Dave for inviting us to this platform. We had a very good time with comrade David when he was here visiting us. We've learned a lot from him in such a very short period of time. Thank you, comrade Dave. I'm with our academic head, which is Dr. Otu, who will also add on what I will be saying. Like correctly, Comrade David has indicated, actually we have got a number of programs, Comrade David, that are accredited by different quality councils. The first council is the QCTO, excuse me, which deals with trades. Also, the other one is the Council on Higher Education, but we have received a provisional accreditation. The reason why we have taken that route as Workers' College was because we wanted to be an institution of higher learning, a workers' university. We have seen a number of institutions, your business universities. Why not have a labor university that will focus solely on labor-related programs and conscientize our workers on labor-related issues? So we have this IWLP, which is a Bachelor of Social Sciences. To unpack a little bit about it, we boast about that program because for participants to participate in that program, they undergo our programs. The list Comrade Dave shared with you, it's the political and social development studies, the labor studies, labor economics, the gender and labor studies programs. Those 4 programs are done here at Workers' College, and those who have succeeded or who are competent are then sent to UKZN to do a Bachelor of Social Science degree. The courses that they major in include the industrial sociology and also sociology. They also do the electives on economic history and also politics. I think I need to explain a little bit, Comrade Chair, if you may allow me, about these programs, because I think it's very important for you to understand why we have partnered with UKZN, why these programs are important. They serve as a conduit to UKZN. What we normally do, they are not accredited. We recruit workers. We've got 26 trade unions that are governing the college. But in terms of participation in our programs, we welcome all trade unions that wishes to participate. And also we have got community organizations as well. We don't look for qualification. So the requirements is that you need to be part of a labor movement or a civil society organization for you to participate. Whether you do qualify to go to university or not, once you are enrolled in our programs, then you can go and do these programs. They serve as an access to education. These programs are very, very important to us. And then in 2010, we then diversified We then had to increase the number of programs, because when you look at the trade union itself as an organization, as an employer too, there were so many gaps that we needed to attend to. We speak about project management, the administration part of things, even to some extent the executive education, because these comrades, they serve in very crucial boards. So you'll find that they possess no formal qualifications or whatsoever when they participate in these boards, and they become a yes sir, yes boss, yes madam kind of participants there. So we seek to equip our comrades to be able to engage critically on policy issues as well. And I was happy, Comrade Dave, that you mentioned something about SALEP. We've had a program called we also had a program in 2015 called the Southern African Labor Education Project with Namibia, with the institution called LARI. And the other one was the Zimbabwe Labor Center, which is also a workers' college. We've had that program at a regional level, which was not accredited, but it was focusing on the political economy of Africa. Of course, we infused the dialectical materialism, historical, and so on and so forth. All those Marxist elements on the program. It was very successful, but we had to end the program because of the finances. We've moved to CETA accredited programs solely because the CETAs, I will have to share with you, comrades. I think this is very important. There is a policy or a plan developed by the higher education, which is called the National Skills Development Plan 2030 Vision. It was called the National Skills Development Strategy before. Basically, there are 8 outcomes, but I want to focus on this one outcome, which is outcome number 7, which states that the state should encourage and support worker-initiated programs. Excuse me. As such, there is an allocation by each and every CETA for trade union education there. And a number of trade unions do sit in those boards of CETAs. So what we've done is that we have diversified in that space, because we find that it was very difficult for us to survive only with I will be honest, with the funds that we get from the Department of Labor and also the National Skills Fund, which of course was decreasing in its value. So we had to, for survival, diversify to other CETA programs as well. It is true, we've been speaking about this, Comrade Dave, through you, Chair. We call each other labor service organizations. We've been doing things in silos, of which maybe we should start and collaborate more on a number of programs, Comrade Dave. I was happy because you also raised that when we are here. Part of the challenge is, of course, the funding, the high cost per participant. Yes, we've got the high dropout rates, not that high. Our graduation rate is somewhere around 84%. The reason I think it's more about psychosocial issues for workers, because others, they lose their employment. Others, they have got organizational challenges that they are facing. They are removed from the programs, and so on and so forth. But it's not about the capability academically or the ability academically of our participants. Yes, we seek to be we want to be a cutting edge of workers' education in the continent and also in the global community, inspired by socialist values and ideals. What we do, Comrade O2 will also touch on that one. How do we also infuse the Marxist values in our programs? And one last more thing, comrades, is that in fact, with regards to the IWP, I'm also a product of these programs as well, myself. I've been a student of Workers College, attended these programs and also went to UKZN. I'm still doing my master's at UKZN. I'm about to finish. What we've noticed is that most of the comrades, when embarking on the educational journey, it's no longer about the organization, it's about the individual itself and how that individual can climb the social ladder, moving upwards. It's no longer about plowing back to their respective trade unions. And I would like to end it there for now, Comrade, and allow Comrade O2 to come in. Thank you, Comrade Chair.
Thank you, Comrade. The next speaker is Monica, who has signaled.
Greetings, everyone. It's very exciting to be on this platform. My name is Monica O2. I'm the head of academic services and research at the Workers College, newly appointed 6 months ago. I'm so excited being part of this community. And so far, it's been such an exciting moment to be part of this fraternity. And Workers College has been progressively, building on the foundations that were set by our Rose Nala and the likes, our comrades who are there and giving us all their support. And I would just want to thank Comrade. Okay, our language is Comrade. Comrade, we're very small and clean, neat family at Workers College, and very cohesive, rooted in socialist idea, where we prioritize the working conditions of the working class. So comrades David and Siabonga, who happens to be the director of the college, have said a lot already about the college. Mine here is just to maybe emphasize some of the points already mentioned by David and Siabonga. And in fact, we are a college, we pride ourselves as a college that is rooted in socialist ideology, mainly embedded in a Marxian theory on how to address the issues at the grassroots, which is the working class. We squarely identify ourselves with the conditions of the working class, and we are exclusively using the Marxian approach, to provide quality education to people who were hitherto disenfranchised and who were not partakers of education. And as already highlighted by my director, Siabonga, that we give access to people, which is the national mandate that education should be accessible by all. So the uniqueness of Workers College is that we recognize experience. We recruit people based on experience, not on formal certification, where as it will be demanded by mainstream institutions of higher learning like universities, where you need to have formal certification for you to enroll for a university program. So we are a very unique institution. We have identified, the conditions of the working class, and we know that they do have a voice. They have been voiceless, but they do have a voice, and ours is to provide a space where they can articulate the issues, and also make their voices meaningful in the broader spectrum of things. So our intentions here, and I thank you, Dave, for making us Workers College South Africa to be at the center of discussions here. And in fact, we are an institution with so much potential, and a lot has been done already, a lot has been achieved already, especially in terms of skills development. Our programs that we run, namely the labor programs, our higher certificates programs, labor economics and labor studies, and also advanced certificates in participatory action research, and so forth and so forth, have gone a long way to produce a cream of people who have also who have taken upon themselves that, we have what it takes for us to unleash our potentials through the medium of higher education. And hence we have a number of memoranda of understanding with a number of universities around the nation. We have a memorandum of understanding specifically with the School of Social Sciences at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, where Siabonga highlighted about the IWLP program, which is done for 5 years, and then upon students completing the higher certificate, either in labor economics or labor studies. And also we have recently signed memorandum of agreement with the University of Western Cape, and we also have memorandum of understanding with University of Durban University of Technology in different scholarly with different scholarly agendas, and what I would like to state here at this international forum is like Dave already highlighted some of the things, in terms of competency, we have produced quite a cream of competent cadres who are working in different sectors of society, and also in terms of our programs, we have really developed. We have elaborate, curriculum that touches on skill development, and we have longitudinal programs that qualify people through formal certification, which is 12 months higher certificate in labor economics or higher certificate in labor studies, and we also offer short-term courses as informed by the needs of trade unions time and again. And in terms of funding, like the director already highlighted, we are funded mainly from two sources, the Department of Labor and also the National Skills Fund, but also because it's not all sufficient, we also have relationship with the different sitters, and they have come on board to sponsor, to fund some of the programs that we run that we train our shop stewards, those from trade unions and also those from civil society and community organization rather, who are interested to do those courses. So my appeal, ours here is that we are so excited to be part of this fraternities, this international fraternity. And I would like to touch on something that was not touched by Dave or Siabonga, and that is research. The only way to make a mark about what we do at Workers College is through research. So recently we have also tried to enrich our program through the culture of research, because scholarship, the only way they can know about international society can know about Workers College is through research and publications, and which we will really appreciate our partnership with all of you present here, and and also giving us opportunities to explore on how we can forge ahead with meaningful research collaboration between Workers College and the different parties seated here on this platform. So I would like to end there for now. And thank you so much, Dave, and thank you so much, Chair. I would like to end here for now. Thank you.
While we're waiting on another comrade to come up on the screen, just ask Monica one quick question. You mentioned the fact that the Department of Labour gives some funding. Do they put any conditions on that funding in terms of trying to influence the policy or philosophy of the college?
Can you repeat that again? I think I'm...
Okay. Well, what I'm asking is, you mentioned that the Department of Labour gives you some funding. And the question is, do they look for any conditions on that funding in terms of influence or control?
Yes, I would like to shift that question to my director so that I don't give a kind of misrepresentation of what that is, since I just newly joined the college. So I may not know, but of course there will be conditions. So Director, please come to my rescue. Thank you.
Okay. Right, the screen is open again, comrades. Anybody want to come in next? Yeah, okay.
Jabu's got a hand up.
Yeah, I see that.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chair. Yes, actually, there are conditions imposed by the Department of Labor. The conditions are that the beneficiaries should be part of, excuse me, part of the leadership, excuse me, part of the leadership of the trade unions that are sent to the college. Other than that, there is no other, there's nothing, but the beneficiaries should come from trade unions or from trade unions. For now, I'll end it here. Sorry, I got disturbed by the phone, but we do not have any we do not have any conditions other than that the beneficiaries should come from the trade union leadership, which in some way impedes the access to education for general members at the shop floor. That is the challenge that we are currently facing. Thank you, Comrade Chair.
That's an important restriction. Jabu.
Thank you, comrades. Thank you, Comrade Jimmy, for letting me ask a question. I just wanted to say to the Workers' College Sabonga and Comrade Ochu, I don't know if she's still here. It's really, really pleasing to see the progress that's taking place as far as the Workers' College is concerned. Mom will be really proud. I was hoping she was going to be here. She's, my dad just said she's not well enough to come in, so I've just had to cancel that. But thank you so much, David, for making the connection, and I'm happy to have, kind of facilitated that. It's really, really pleasing to see the Workers' College kind of where it is in terms of the progress that it's made, especially as the sister college, Ruskin College, that was the model of the Workers' College, has been struggling over the last years to the point that it was going to be relegated from a higher education status to an FE, further education status, which took a couple of years. After that, the University of West London came in to rescue it. So it's no longer an independent college. It's now under the what you call the University of London, which is really kind of concerning because it no longer has that worker focus type of education that we are seeing here, which is was illustrated by what Siabonga's kind of courses that were here. But it still kind of claims to kind of focus on the recruitment from communities and workers background, but there's quite a lot of questions around that. On the other hand, it's really, really good to see the variety of courses in terms of, say, public health, which is something that I think the Workers' College needs to think about in terms of developing. I was talking to Professor Danny Dolling last night because I was going to come on this, and he was telling me he used to be in the board of directors for Ruskin College. And I was saying, well, there's this Workers' College in South Africa, which is doing quite a wonderful work around workers. It would be interesting if we were interested in branching to other departments and just kind of bringing in different expertise, because if he's been involved with Workers' College, he's actually a professor of human geography at the Oxford University. So that's a really interesting connection. But having said all that, it's really, really, it's a sense of, I feel a sense of achievement on behalf of Mom to have led the African diaspora into a situation where we are now leading experts in education in the world stage. This is something really, really important, and I'm very proud to see this happening because I've been on a number of UCU strikes in Oxford, where people are really, a lot of lectures are really struggling in terms of the education systems and their contracts and their obligations. Lecturers have had to go on strike because their education is not, their work and their value as educators is not being recognized. So there's a real crisis in education here in the UK, and to see Africans taking on such a robust view of education is absolutely amazing. I mean, I've been bragging about the videos that David shared with me on the graduation day, and especially the dancing. That was absolutely, I wish I had been there. It's really, really pleasing to see. I mean, even the reception in terms of how people are receiving this education. I know Siabonga was explaining about the accreditation in terms of its levels. It's still, I've met quite a few people like, what's his name? Met him last year, Retusa president, I think it's Dube, who said he was also a product of the Workers' College. Sabonga, you said you've also got a background in the Workers' College. So this Workers' College is really planting really important seeds in terms of the development. And it was also pleasing to see on the video the amount of women that were wearing their gowns and graduating, which is something that I know my mother would be absolutely, astonished. I'd be very proud, because that's always her concern, that women are not left out in the education sector. So thank you very much on her behalf, and I hope this college continues to grow with its achievements. Thanks.
Thank you, Jabu. At this stage, is there any comrade either like make a contribution or ask a question? I see Dominic's flag coming up as well now. Michael, your flag is up. You go.
Michael Noble's got his hand up, Jimmy.
Michael Noble has his hand up, and Dominic had his hand up. So
Okay.
we'll let Michael go first, and then Dominic.
Okay. I'm ashamed that I don't know about the Workers' College of South Africa. Really embarrassed. It sounds like really good things are going on. I myself was in the 1980s was a community lawyer working in a council estate in Oxford. I later went on to go to Oxford University, but I actually was involved in teaching at Ruskin College, and indeed also teaching on something else called the WEA, which is another workers' education initiative in the UK. And I taught mainly on the social work course, which was actually a radical social work course during the 1980s, and we taught welfare rights, we taught employment rights, and so forth to social workers who are working in, sort of the poorer communities across the UK, but also with a very strong trade union bias, and also taught a lot of comrades who were in the ANC in exile at the time. So I wondered whether there was any kind of social work element, first of all. That's one of my questions, because I think some social workers got into a really bad space in the UK, very box ticking, and no scope for radical or sort of left socialist principles getting into the into social work at all. So I mean, it's just sort of dead space almost in the UK, in my view. That was one thing, because I do think it was. I think there were good and exciting things happen, including kind of action research that came out of that course, including I wave a book, but something called well, you can't actually focus because I've gone on a blur, but the Factory in the City, which was a thing about the massive redundancies, retrenching. I'm trying to think of the South African words. Retrenchment that went on in the Cowley factory during the 1980s, and we worked together with comrades in the unions in the factory, doing quantitative research as well as action research, but actually teaching those quantitative research methods and so forth. And I think it was exciting times, and I think kind of a combination of action research and quantitative research may be something else that you could draw from. Final comment on Ruskin, though, is that I don't know what course your mother was on and whether she was there in the 80s, and whether I intersect with her. I'm very sorry, but being old and with poor memory, I don't remember her specifically.
She was under David Sanborn.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I wouldn't actually have necessarily come into contact with her. But they were exciting times. But and in confidence, management was at that point really quite reactionary. So it was actually a struggle. John Hughes was the called in principle, I think it was called at the time, and really wasn't, and a management board. Yes, it was trade union, senior trade union people, but they were actually quite reactionary, and there was a sort of tension between some of the more left-leaning socialist staff and the senior management, even within the college, even in the 1980s. So it's not just bad things happening now. I'm thinking that certainly from the whole of the 1980s, there were issues with John Hughes as the principal. Sorry, thank you. Anyway, but really exciting stuff going on in South Africa. Brilliant.
Thank you, Michael. Dominic.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of outline my own background. I was brought up in an area of Manchester, inner city part of Manchester. Parents were from Donegal. The whole community we were in were Irish, and the kids were Irish descent. The school was a Catholic school, inner city kids, Irish descent. The teachers were all English, couldn't give a damn about the kids really. They used violence to keep you in order till you were about 12. And then some of the kids started to threaten them back, and then they just tried to amuse you till you left at 15. You left at 15, and then you started your education. I wanted to be in engineering, so I started going to night school and all that sort of stuff and so on. So I'm totally in favour of as much education as possible for working class kids. And I think that for them to be articulate is very important. To understand the basics of life is very important. But the question is, what is the basics of life that they've been taught? See, I was wondering about a workers' college that's giving certification. And if it's teaching socialism, I thought, well, what the hell use is that certification? Because you show it to an employer and you've no chance of getting a job. If you're a shop steward, certainly in my day, if you were a shop steward, they'd have the employers' federations that have a blacklist of people who were not to be employed because of their trade union activities. The building industry was renowned for it. You know, so in engineering, it was the same. And so that's one question I'm raising is, what's the certification we're talking about? I don't think you need an exam to be taught what I would call socialist economics. I'm just want to raise a question about what labour economics means in these colleges. Does it mean Marx's labour theory of value, for example? Or is it just the usual capitalist blah, blah, blah about how profits arrived, which is usually a lot of fog? Or you just add it on or something like that. There's no theory behind it as far as I can see, just in the common use of it. I did about 3 months on an economics degree because I had to retire before I was 40 because of arthritis. And in the spells in between, I used to go to adult education courses. Some of them I finished, some of them I didn't. I didn't finish the one at the Polytechnic, but I was on 3 months and we were getting this sort of about economics. And there was no sort of understanding of economics as I understood it. It was a sort of Marxist view of it. And I think it's a question, and I fill this one in. One of the things I did when I was a shop steward at work was go on a union summer schools where we went for a week to Ruskin. And our union was AUEW TAS, which was controlled by the Communist Party, at least the leadership was. And there we discussed how the police were formed, how the ruling class couldn't just use the military to suppress the working class, because that would lead to revolution, because they just used bullets and bayonets. You had to have another force that was using clubs to keep the working class in order. And that was very, very fruitful. about understanding what society was about. But there's one of the full-timers who, in our area, who was telling us that he was on a train and he met some lads coming back from an ETU week's union stewards course at Ruskin. And they said it was great. It says you learn all about what knives and forks to use at a banquet, you know, and all this sort of rubbish. And you thought, well, what the hell has that got to do with being a trade union activist? Where are you ever going to use it? If you do use it, you've sold out. So, you know, I'm just making the point that because it's workers' education doesn't necessarily mean it's beneficial to the working class. I think that's the point that I would make about this whole thing. And the other thing is, when you talk about labour economics, being in the college as one of the areas, is that a Marxist view? Does it compare or contrast capitalist economics with Marxist economics in that sort of sense, to broaden it? And the other thing is, as far as I would see, the state funds education to produce people who'll keep the profit system going, usually through their labour. But some of it is used to indoctrinate other workers how beneficial capitalism is to the world and not the country. So it's I haven't got any academic background, but I think the whole question is who controls it, who's funding it, because who funds it controls it. Because you've got to keep the staff paid, and if you haven't got the staff paid, you haven't got a college. And I don't see how an education ministry that's a capitalist one, because there's no other sort in the world at the moment, you know, is funding something that's basically designed to stop the workers realising the goal of transforming society from capitalism to socialism. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Dominic. Dominic, you mentioned there the blacklist. One of the things that I was assured, I was a member of a negotiating team of shop stewards in the electrical industry. And by coincidence, none of us were employed. And one thing that we were assured by an employer's representative, that there was no such thing as a blacklist in Ireland. It was genuinely just coincidence that for 9 years, none of us could find employment. So by any other name, they have their ways and means of trying to keep us down. Any comrade wish to come in with any questions at this stage? Or indeed any contributions?
Jimmy, could I
David.
ask if Marcia could come in? Marcia is in effect a shop steward in Namibia, in Swakopmund, and she is, you know, has led an important, what can I say, engagement. That'd be a nice word, with the employers. And as someone who I know is very keen on further education, Marcia, if you could come in, it'd be great to hear you.
Yeah, indeed, you're very welcome.
And you too, you know, also from Namibia.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, you can be heard.
Okay, I'm Marcia from Swakopmund, Namibia. Okay, I'm also one of the employees at the security company at Hosop Mine. And one thing that I've realized is the workers, we lack education, especially when it comes to our rights. We actually don't know what our rights are. And I think we need to be educated on that, or we need to educate ourselves on that. But now that I saw, that I heard from Sia Bonga, that there is actually colleges in South Africa that is giving this education. I never heard of it, I just heard now. And I'm grateful that the information that I just got. And I actually would like to be part of that college, or I would like to take some of the courses. I didn't record all of the courses, but I'll Google it later, and then, or maybe if he can give me his contact number so that I can go through the books or through the courses, all the courses, or so that he can mail me the courses they are offering, so that I can go through it and see which courses I can be able to do. Yeah. Basically what I wanted to say. I just want to add education on labor.
In person.
That's all I want to say.
Okay, Mercy, I thank you. I don't know whether there was a radio or something playing in the background with your Mercy, but somehow there was seems to be a bit of interference on the line. Kapele.
Yes, greetings, comrades.
Go ahead, comrade.
Yes, I am Kapele Mutachi. I'm from Workers College. I think I just want to briefly respond to the question that was asked on the relevancy of our programs. First of all our programs, as Comrade Msia Siabonga and also Dr. Otto, they've highlighted some of the programs that we offer, be it labor studies, labor economics, participatory action research, and so forth and so on. So all these programs are grounded in Marxist-Leninist ideology, informed by working class experiences, knowledge and skills of trade union and community activists. So our primary focus on the program that we are facing, we are offering rather, the primary focus or our primary objective is to emancipate our shop swat and build class consciousness, so that they are equipped with tools of analysis to understand the structure of the society itself, to understand who owns what in the economy, and upon being equipped with such knowledge, then they will have to come up with what is to be done, what will be the way on how we can change the entire structure so that the working class can also get a bigger share in the economy. So in that sense, we are talking about how can we drive socialism. So that is the primary objective of our program. So the secondary objective is based on labor markets. Remember, these are workers, and we know to move to socialism, it is a process. It is not an event that we will wake up today and tomorrow we are in socialism. So the second focus is on labor market. How can we capacitate our shop swat so that they can better serve their constituency wherever they are deployed? So the first issue here, it's about the importance of skills development and also capacity building and career progression, because before we get to socialism, workers, they need to eat. They need to put bread and butter on the table. So this is how our programs are structured. We are a Marxist-Leninist. We are not apologetic when it comes to that. So we want the dictatorship of the proletariat. We want workers to take over the means of production. So, but in order to get there, there is that process. They need to eat first, capacitating them with the labor legislation, the labor relation frameworks, and how better they can be equipped to represent workers when they are dismissed based on let's say unfair dismissal, unfair labor practices. If, for example, a worker is going to a shop swat and reporting that, for argument's sake, I've been caught red-handed stealing an apple. So then I've been fired. So there's a legislation in this country, a Labor Relations Act. So even if the substantive fairness is there, yes, I've stolen, but the employer has to follow the due processes. So we also capacitate them to understand the labor legislations, how they can compel the employer to comply to this legislation so that they can improve the living and the working conditions of their members. So that is the labor market focus. But the broader picture, it's about build a class consciousness, understanding capitalism, their ins and outs, and how best they can dismantle the capitalist system itself so that workers themselves, they can take over the state and the means of production and address the problem that they are facing, because we are convinced that the problems that workers are facing in South Africa, be it unemployment, be it income inequality, wealth inequality. So the solutions of this problem cannot be found within the confines of capital system itself. So that they need to understand that, you know, capitalism now is a thesis, and the antithesis of it, it's a socialism, so that we can move towards a classless society where people live in peace and harmony. So let me end there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, comrade. You nailed a lot of targets there in that contribution. Again, we open to the comrades. And I repeat, if any wishes to just simply ask a question, I would ask if you take the opportunity to do so. Well, in the absence, I would ask David, and if he wishes to come back to make a contribution on the comments passed already.
Yeah, look, I wonder if I could make a contribution specifically on the funding of workers' education and some of the points that have been raised, but not on them as a whole, because I'd like to hear a little bit more debate. And I'd like to invite Hewitt, if you'd like to come in. I'm just thinking of people who are out there, Mlungisi, other people who have not spoken as yet. But let me just add some points, in relation to the debate, which are substantial facts. I must say, I learned a lot by going to Workers' College. By the way, I was singing and dancing along with the workers. The mood is terrific, comrades. And I do wish you could get there sometime and participate with the workers. There is a sense of struggle. There's a sense of understanding of the huge polarization of society on wealth and the ideas that go along with the society we built in South Africa, which we try to change, and how that change has become stultified. The transition which has been promised is not taking place. But there are certain treasures which the workers have achieved. Remember that South Africa's liberation, if you can use the term in its full sense, has come about through working class struggle, massive struggles in the 1980s and by the youth, which have really made quite an imprint on society. Although when you go visually there, it's just you just see the signs of wealth and inequality. Now, what has been achieved, the word SETA is Skills and Education Training Authority, SETA. Now, in my view, a SETA was a nightmare. It's a tax of 1% of the workers' salary, and 1% from the employers goes towards a SETA. And the idea was that we would move into developing skills development, education and training, something on a massive scale, post-apartheid. Something, as you would have seen, Germany has achieved in many ways, and maybe any European, industrial society has achieved. And that would be accelerated. And unfortunately, huge amounts are being accumulated in these SETAs. Sometimes we're talking about billions of rand, which is millions of pounds or dollars, have been accumulated. But how is that money being used? And it's been siphoned off in different ways. But I can say that something of a change has happened, because when I was at the graduation, I had discussion with the CEOs of the SETAs, and the word was pleasantly surprised. One of them demanded to know from me, how could he organize an international trade union education curriculum? In other words, for trade union leaders to be developed and to participate in international courses. Now, that's not what I expected. And he was using the same terminology as comrade. Yeah. He was using the same terminology as we were talking about here. So South Africa is a society going through all kinds of zigzags, twists and turns, but there are, one of the facts is that a huge amount has been accumulated for the training of workers, their skills and development. And then, of course, the official line is that this is going to lead to better tripartite relations, which is, in other words, better relationships between unions and employers and the unions and the state and all the rest of it. But that is not vigorously enforced, as you've heard from Siyabonga. In fact, what we see is that some of the SETAs, which are providing some of the money, are quite keen. I was surprised how keen they were to be able to fund different workers' programs. Of course, it's workers' money that they are deploying, so they should be keen. And that, I think, is coming through. There's also a crisis in the leadership, particularly of COSATU, so that what was closed off in the past is now becoming open. And I think we can see many progressive developments by taking the gap, by opening up particularly the workers' education programs, if we can get the international cooperation and coordination to make them happen. We're not dead in the water, far from it. When we saw the mood at the graduation, that's a mood of revolution, not of patience and social climbing and all the rest of it. Although we have to also face that workers expect education to lead to something. And as I think Dominic raised, if the possibilities, if you've been educated with socialist education, you can arise. But my situation was something of a contradiction, because I came to South Africa. I was excluded from all institutions for a while. I battled with a PhD even to get a part-time job in academia. And then that's one of the zigzags of South Africa. I ended up as a director in the Human Science Research Council, where I met people like Michael Noble, and I hopefully did some really useful research. So there are these contradictions, and more than contradiction, we need to take the gap and turn the resources which are available in the state, paid for by the workers, of course, and make sure that that is turned towards, genuine socialist education. I've got a lot to say about other things, but look, I'd appreciate if one or two of the other comrades could come in, maybe Hewitt, if you could come in, and maybe Mlingisi Mtolo. That name is a great name in South Africa's history of resistance. If one or two of the other comrades could come in, then Jimmy, I would like to conclude on some points, maybe at some action points.
That's okay, David.
Yeah.
Good.
Am I allowed to speak now?
You can speak away, Hewitt. Carry on.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, the struggle for conceptualization of working class leadership took its center in Russia with Lenin and so on. In Europe, outside of Europe in the 1960s and so on, it took the form of petty bourgeois romanticism, etc. But nevertheless, for me, the struggle of working class leadership is a practical and theoretical struggle. And if it does not take place within any one country, that cannot be resolved. Nevertheless, it is a huge discussion that must take place. Let us come to Southern Africa. I agree with the understanding that we have to have theoretical classes. We have to have a structure of theoretical classes throughout the region. Without that, we are in trouble. The working class must get theoretical training on the class struggle. I don't think anyone can argue with that. But the issue is we have to understand our own history. Namibia and South Africa, David was a living example of participating in that struggle, and there were many things that he mentioned and that he explained about that struggle, which is of extreme importance to the working class leadership to understand the class struggle in South Africa. Our own history in Namibia is one in which extreme right-wing tribal monstrosity was enlisted by the imperialists to dismantle the struggle for national determination, of self-determination of the nation. Kissinger was, as much as he was involved in the Pol Pot, he was involved in Namibia, he was involved in Chile, he was involved everywhere where there was mass murder of the revolutionary cadre. And these are things that the working class need to understand. First, we have to go to the history, and that is why it is so important to have theoretical classes on the actual history of the working class. The theoreticians, especially Trotskyist theoreticians, put the question of collusion with the imperialist on Stalin. You know, it's just a blanket accusation. But in fact, if you look at a person like Kissinger, he was instrumental in the coming to power of the Pol Pot, of the most backward, primitive, right-wing, tribal monstrosity in Namibia. They sell everything, they steal everything. And at the moment, we sit with massive riches in this country. But the country is bankrupt, and they have killed thousands of Namibian freedom fighters during the liberation struggle. The same with the ANC. The ANC and SWAPO had been given status which they never deserved. They were tribal, extremely backward, savage, right-wing, fascist organizations which have been elevated to freedom fighters. And these are the things that the working class need to understand. The extreme savagery was expressed in the necklacing by Winnie Mandela of the working class. It's not. It was a lumpen attack by these extreme right-wing tribal organizations on the working class, the necklacing, etc. These things the working class need to understand. for us to build a proper working class leadership. And these things are still not addressed. At the moment in South Africa, when they raise issues like the fees must fall, the fees must fall campaigns are held at ransom by lumpen elements who burn down the classrooms and who burn down libraries, etc. It's the same lumpen elements who are directing the xenophobia in South Africa. And that is all targeted against the working class leadership. Until we understand, until the working class understand that that nature of the struggle in Southern Africa, until then it'll take the turn of the petty bourgeois romantics like Che Guevara and Fidel Castro, and who take the same form of employing lumpen elements to destroy the working class leadership. For that reason, we need studies to examine the history of the working class in Southern Africa. David is a person who can attest to, I think, to everything I said, unless he disagrees with me, but I think he knows what I'm talking about. So, comrades, that is the importance of having a school, a revolutionary school of understanding who should lead the struggles in Southern Africa. And I'm sure understanding the struggle for working class leadership in South Africa will be a lesson worldwide. Thank you, comrade.
Thank you, comrade. Just one final call, if any comrade wishes to come in before I call David back in. No. This seems to be very popular, David. Go ahead.
Well, look, thanks for some marvelous,
sorry. Can I just say something? I think Comrade David has encyclopedia of knowledge of the South African struggles, and he has a lot of input to understand the problems of working class leadership in South Africa, and he has to put it to book.
Agreed. Okay, David, back to you.
Yeah, thanks for all the points that have been made. We've had some quite energetic discussion, maybe not brought to a conclusion. Dominic, I think I register all your points. Let me make some points in conclusion. First of all, I'm very impressed. Maybe I shouldn't be, but actually I am a little with some of the work that's done at the colleges here in the United States. In many departments, there's exemplary work done in terms of developing methodology, developing skills of students, and being able to turn them to practical advantage. I'm talking about really what I see in the education of my daughters, which let me put it this way, I was pleasantly surprised. Now, I'd like to see all those techniques which have accelerated their development enormously and their capacity to change society brought into the work in South Africa. I would have loved to have had the opportunities when I grew up and participated in a very colonial University of Natal, and to have had those advantages. If I could mention some of the things that I've seen, tied up with a course is the idea of community contributors. of writing articles, of communicators, of being innovators. In other words, each course which we do, and I'd raise this with the college because I'm sure it's been done, but maybe it could be a bit formalized, then you get an additional credit for being able to write articles and to be able to contribute in the community work that, or the union work you're doing in one way or the other. Can I say that, I'm now investigating the possibility of reviving a labor bulletin in South Africa to be able to carry the articles from the students in the college and among union activists to be able to take forward what they've learned and to apply it in different ways. I think at the moment, we do need a very empirical approach. And that's why I'm glad we've got Michael Noble here, because he does, so much, detailed work, because actually a lot of the work that we're doing now needs to be empirically based, because facts count, especially when there are all kinds of theoretical controversies, or can I say ideological controversies, and facts don't count. In fact, facts are vital. The work that we did in the Wages Commission in the 1970s was vital. We got information to workers about the exact time of the hearings, the exact what they could expect in making a statement, putting out together statements by workers, and then putting that forward. Some of the specifics, some of the details, some of the analysis which needs of working class conditions are absolutely important in terms of making a case and in holding workers to the commitment that they're making when they come to get workers' education. So empirical work, research work, as Dr. Utu has mentioned, is really, really important. Of course, there's a question of climbing a social ladder. Once you've got a degree, it's very difficult with, particularly with African families. I came from a privileged family. My family would expect me to get a job, but I didn't always. I ended up more in prison than with a job. But that was the expectation. But with African families with large number of children to get through school, if not through university, there is a lot bearing on that qualification. And we do want to see ways in which people can get favorably employed, but not actually be forced or stand against the temptation just to, shall we say, climb that ladder, go a few rungs upward, as promised by our education system, but make something of their life to be able to make a difference in society, and more than that, an actual transformation of society. Sometime I was just reading Lenin when he was in St. Petersburg, useful reading, and about the hard work he did just to understand working class conditions. And he never wrote a pamphlet without understanding exactly what was there, and actually the very few mistakes in what he did. And there was a great, shall we say, a great political benefit. So look, what are we looking for, I think, out of this discussion? I'd be very keen to see opportunities for joint exchanges, maybe with some of the colleges, with particularly with you, Alex, and maybe elsewhere, to be able to see what's possible. It'd be marvelous if we could have those workers coming to South Africa, or let's say those who are running courses come to South Africa and to exchange with those who are teaching and those who are learning, and actually develop, the work there. I'm particularly keen because, Dominic, you're quite right. What do we do with certification? I would say that if we could have online and joint online and in-person participation, we'd be able to take up a lot of the work which is possible in places like Namibia, or elsewhere in South Africa, because Workers' College is based in Durban at the moment, although there are great possibilities, and in Zimbabwe, where let's say workers are going through hell at the moment because of the economy being destroyed by the leadership there, and to be able to see, what's possible, and to have other ways in which we can exchange and develop, and maybe to use such technologies as WhatsApp, rather than the more formal ways of communicating as in person. So those are some of the possibilities. Exchange programs would be marvelous. And then eventually, if relationships mature, I'd be really keen to see accreditation of the work being done by the Workers' College. Not because it's necessarily going to lead to people climbing up the ladder, although everyone deserves, particularly the working class, deserves a better deal than actually the deal which is being handed out to them educationally. We want to use every opportunity to be able to move up the ladder of intellectual and academic development, but that will be used in the service of the working class and not for personal gain. I'm going to stop there, Jimmy. I see that two of the comrades would like to come in, and let's rather hear their voices too. So there's some fresh
I was
voices.
just watching that, David, and I was hoping that you would call a halt before the comrades. Comrade Canasili.
Good evening or good afternoon, comrades? My name is Khanyisile Mngadi, facilitator and educator at Workers College. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this platform. First and foremost, I would just like to say that I'm a product of Workers College myself, having done labor economics, higher certificate in labor economics, and subsequently did a degree in the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and I'm currently like almost finished with my master's. First and foremost, I'd like to speak about maybe to answer a few questions about the types of programs and how different is Workers College to most to standard or your traditional colleges that are out there. The types of programs that are offered by the Workers College are in fact fine-tuned, and they speak specifically to the needs of trade union leaders and the community leaders, and they are tailor-made to conscientize our participants, and they are also and the way of imparting knowledge is not your typical banking concept type of approach where our participants are treated as in fact the Workers College recognizes and it relies on lived experiences of the participants and leaders. The type of programs that are offered by the college, in fact, when you come out of the programs or when you receive your certificate, you are never the same. I'm not selling the college or trying to paint the college in a good light, but being a product of the college myself, it shapes, it changes the way that participants think, and then it makes participants or students see themselves as part of the community, in fact, to seek solutions to the challenges or the social ills that are confronted by our societies, and to rewrite our own history. And also Dr. Otu spoke about the role of research. What is encouraged by the college is that the participants have a responsibility of writing their own or producing their own knowledge and challenging the current discourse.
Thank you, comrade. And I like that point that you made about people never being the same again. Comrade Mulunski.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chair. Greeting to everyone. My name is Mlungisi Mtolo. The point that I wanted to raise is the issue that we have here in maybe in South Africa or SADC. The issue with regard to worker education is it's the model of funding, because we know with all the resources we rely on the capitalism or employers. So most of the time, you know, when we train workers, employers think that we are preparing the workers to fight them, so they limit in terms of funding. So I think this platform will also help in terms of maybe how can we structure the model of funding for training of workers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, comrade. David, there's about 1 minute left or so. If you wanted to have, if you
Well, let
wanted
me
to have
give my
last word.
My 30 seconds worth. Comrades, it's been a marvelous discussion. We've had great participants, and I'm so pleased to see and to hear the voice of comrades who've actually participated, I've met and participated and toyed with, because we didn't just celebrate by nodding and shaking. I shook so many hands. I forget how many hands I shook, at the graduation. There's a marvelous spirit. I congratulate the comrades on what you've built. It's tremendous. I look to see in what way I can contribute, and I hope everyone who's participating and who has links to colleges, as Jimmy's mentioned, maybe in Ireland and in the United States, where there's an extraordinary wealth of labor courses I've found, some of which look actually really well prepared and actually quite would be a useful sort of aid to some of our teaching in South Africa. I'm sure you're doing great stuff, but there's always let's look to see how we can improve even when we're doing okay. And how we can participate in this continuous discussion of the way in which we use knowledge, the knowledge which is scientific knowledge, Marxism, based on the Marxist ideas, but open empirically to what the facts are out there. So we don't just go ahead with, blinded, or let's say infused with ideology, but are prepared to face up to often very difficult facts and to come back with the answers to very important issues which are raised by ordinary working class, particularly on the political field. I salute the work you're doing. I look forward to working with you, and I think we're going to make all those links which I've mentioned, and we'll develop further. Amandla, comrades.
Amandla.
Amandla.
Comrades,
Okay.
I thank you all. I thank David. I thank all the contributors and all the comrades who have attended the meeting. I think it's been extremely beneficial to all of us. If Pam is online still, I would ask her just to come in with an update on the next work on the Workers' International Network.
Well, next week, Finn is leading off on Hamas, but I thought maybe he might like to say a few words.
It's next week we're having a discussion about the divisive role that imperial powers have played in the international struggle of workers. They've divided workers along national, ethnic, religious, and other lines at every opportunity as it suits them. So we're focusing on that. We know about their intervention in Afghanistan, where they stimulated Islamic group in their battle against Russia at the time. In the India-Pakistan revolution after World War II, they divided Hindus and Pakistani people, Hindus and Muslim people, leading to a mass slaughter. In Ireland, they used the Orange Order to divide Catholics from Protestants. At the present time, the Middle East is the focus of our discussion. So we'll be discussing not just Hamas and its history and evolution and the role that it has played, but the generally divisive role that imperialism has played in the Middle East in terms of religion. In one instance, supporting Sunni forces, another instance, supporting Shiite forces where the divisions suited them. So we're going to be discussing the various ways in which imperialism has divided peoples. They supported Saudi Arabia, which had a very backward Islamic kind of history with the Wahhabi group. But because it suited them in terms of the oil, they supported the Saudi regime against the Hashemite regime following World War I. So there's lots of issues. There'd be a particular focus, obviously, today in terms of the role that Hamas plays, its evolution, its origin, what it stands for, and what the perspectives are. So there'd be a general discussion about the divisive role that imperial powers have played internationally in the roles of supporting various religions, with a particular focus on the current developments in the Middle East. It'll be an open discussion. We're anxious to hear all the comers' opinions and insights into these questions, and you're all invited and welcome to come and to participate next Sunday.
Comrades?
Yeah. Can I just say that's the last meeting for now for this year for 2023. We're going to be taking 2 weeks off, and we'll be back on the 7th of January.
And if any comrade has any difficulty in making contact with us, just contact one of the comrades that you know, and or pick up the information online on Facebook page, Workers International Network. But the meetings, no matter what the topic are open discussions. Everybody is welcome to participate. So with that, comrades, I leave you now for a week. Thank you.
Can I just suggest, if anybody wants to go on our mailing list for weekly meetings, I'll leave the meeting open for a few minutes. If you just put your email address in the chat, and I'll add you onto the list. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
See you next week. Bye.
Thanks, comrades.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, comrades. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wait.
Thank you, comrades.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye,
comrade. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I can't see any addresses going round, David, so you know who everybody is, won't you, if anybody isn't on the
I'll
list?
circulate a list. Capella, if you want to put in, but look, otherwise we'll, I'll circulate some lists, and then maybe we put them provisionally on a list, and see if people really want to be permanently on the list.
Yeah, that's the offer, really, if people want to be informed. Yeah. But I don't see any, so I'm going to assume, unless Mungisi is doing something.
Lungisi Mtolo. Lungisi, I'm not sure if I met you. I must have met you. But anyway, shoot me your email. I have most of the other emails. Okay?
Okay. See you next week. Bye.
Sure. Okay. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.